work each builder has done. Everyone's work will be put through the fire to see whether or not it keeps its value. If the work survives the fire, that builder will receive a reward. But if the work is burned up, the builder will suffer great loss. One more slide. The builders themselves will be saved, but like someone escaping through a wall of flames. The Apostle Paul tells us that the foundation of all things is Jesus, and you're given the freedom to build on that foundation however you want. But one of these days, your building is going to be tested. You see, what Paul is saying is you can be someone who loves Jesus, who's got a relationship with Jesus. You've made a commitment to Jesus. And then on top of that, you can do all kinds of things with your life because His salvation is a foundation. It's rock solid. It's not going to leave you. If you are saved, if He has forgiven your sins, then that is secure. That's your foundation. But if you build a life on it that is just completely made up of worthless things, empty things, then you're going to be saved, but just barely. And this is not something that we're told Jesus will actually say. It's a conclusion from that line right there. Jesus might say this to you: you barely made it. You just barely made it. Everything in your life burned away, and all that's left is just you. Everything that you've done has burned away, and all that's left is just you. I forgave you, you get to come in, you're saved, but you just barely made it. It's one thing Jesus could say. There's one more thing Jesus could say to you, and for that, you need to go back into Matthew. Hopefully you kept your finger in chapter 24, because now we're going to go to 25, and we're going to start in verse 13. Just to prove that this is Jesus continuing the same thought that He had before, we start at verse 13 where it says, "Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." He says again, "It will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents. And oh, by the way, a talent of money refers to 2 years of a day laborer's wage. So 2 years' worth of the average household income. In Lafayette, we're talking 1 talent is worth roughly $80,000. Okay. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I've gained 5 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness.' The man with the 2 talents also came. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I've gained 2 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness.' Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. 'Master,' he said, 'I knew that you're a hard man, harvesting what you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you.' His master replied, 'You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.'" The servant who failed to use what he was given finds the same end as the servant who beats his brothers and carouses in worthless wickedness. That's frightening to me. But I like to pay more attention to the positive side of that because there are two servants who get the words that I want to hear from Jesus. And those are the third words that Jesus might say to you. Jesus might say, well done. Well done. See, with Jesus, there's no difference between fruitfulness and faithfulness. What we've just talked about is we've talked about these three things. The first one is really the issue of your salvation. The first one is really the issue of, have I been saved? Does Jesus know me? Do I know Jesus? Have I given Him my heart? Do I walk with Him? Do I have a relationship with Him? That's the issue of, am I saved? Am I forgiven? The second issue is, am I faithful? Am I doing what He asked me to do? The third issue is, am I fruitful? In fact, fill those things out right now. Ask yourself those questions, because those are the three questions that help keep your now moments on pace for your then moment, for the moment when Jesus and you meet face to face. Ask yourself those questions. Am I saved? Will I be faithful? Will I be fruitful? And in Jesus' mind, those last two need to be really, really, really tightly linked. Because for Him, if you're faithful, you will be fruitful. Now, all that remains is, what does it mean to be fruitful? Well, we read this passage about talents, and quite often we read that story and we say the word talent and we say, oh my goodness, that means my gifts, my abilities, my skills, my talents, right? And so then many times pastors will allegorize that passage and say, this is all about, how you use your abilities, your talents, your gifts. And I've done that before, and it's very appropriate because a talent is something that Jesus has given us, and we need to use it in a way that provides fruitfulness. But there's one extra thing that we've been given. There's one other thing that we've been given, and it's a thing that's more valuable than anything else. It's the knowledge that God so loved the world that He gave His Son, that whoever believes in Him would not perish but have eternal life. We've been given the gospel. We've been given the message that Jesus saves. And if we are not multiplying that talent, that bag of gold, then we are not faithful. So to challenge us to be thinking with that moment in mind, I've asked a missionary to come to us today and share with us his story about how he's trying to live for that moment with his family and trying to be fruitful in his life. So I want to invite Seth and Darla. Can you wave at least so we can see you back there? And Seth, come on up here. This is Seth and Darla Curtis. Would you welcome Seth with me? Okay. What do you think? This is your first time with us, right? Yeah. Are we all right?
Yeah, you're okay.
Are we good? Okay, just double checking. Do you guys have his microphone working? Okay, cool. I want to just start out by letting Seth introduce himself to you, but I have to start out by saying that I know his brother. His brother is Titus. He's the worship pastor over at Faith Church, and I think he's cool. And so I thought, well, if Titus is cool, maybe Seth is cool. And so I've hung out with him for just a little bit. And I think, yeah, he's pretty cool. So anyway, Seth, would you start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself? Give us the brief biographical family type information stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I've got 3 kids with us here today. They're all in the back. I got a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
I don't know if that's going to work for us. Your wireless is kind of... It might be the reception thing. If it still does that, we'll bring this.
It might be better. Anyway,
no. It's from your transmitter thing. Whatever in your pocket.
Let me just pull it out.
We're good. We'll see if that works.
All right. Well, we grew up. Both my wife and I grew up as missionary kids on the mission field. I grew up in Japan, later in West Africa. Darla grew up in Congo, and later in Zambia, one country south. So we've kind of always been connected with cross-cultural ministry and believe that's a big part of God equipping us.
Now, you were raised in cross-cultural ministry, but not every missionary kid ends up being a missionary. No. So what led you to do that? I don't know if this is going to work for us. Want to do one of these guys? Sorry about our technological gap. You want to switch seats with me? You can sit over here.
Yeah, and I guess, is this on too?
Yeah.
I wasn't heading down that road either. Really, through high school, I really had, just like what you're talking about this morning, the idea that I've got time to get right with God. And it really wasn't until my freshman year in college, I went to a Bible college and was just kind of going through the motions, that God really got a hold of my heart. And it was just through a series of good decisions and just serving God in little things that He allowed me then to be involved in bigger things, as my heart was doing it for the right purposes and glorifying Him.
So was there a specific moment when you said, yes, it's Africa for me?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily so much the place as just the what. You know, I believe that God had called me into the ministry as a pastor, and I believe that could be in any place. But I think that right now God has equipped us specifically for a ministry like Congo, where it's a little more of a hardship post. He's equipped me with a wife that can handle that probably does better at it than me. I definitely wouldn't be able to be in Congo if it wasn't for a wife and a family who are part of the team. But yeah, it was my freshman year in college. We had gone through a missions conference, and I was really, really struggling with surrendering my life to God, to do with whatever He wanted to do. And I really, my struggle was, God had been working in my heart that whole semester, and I really desired to go to Africa and serve Him there, but I thought that was my idea, you know. And so my struggle that week was, you know, if I surrender to God to do whatever He wants with my life, He's going to have me stay in the States and be a pastor. I just know it. And I can't think of anything worse than that. And
Thanks, man.
So I can remember that week, my roommate was also a missionary kid. His dad was a missionary in Brazil, and we were sitting in the sauna that night. I was just crying, pouring out my heart to him about what God was doing in my life that week. And he really helped bring me back around that's just not something you come up with on your own, you know, to want to live in Africa and serve God there. That's something that God has placed in your heart and has really made some good decisions that week.
When I was a kid, I remember there was a family in our church that were missionaries to Zaire, which is Congo. And they were telling some stories to us. And I remember praying and saying, God, you know, just don't send me to Africa. You can do just about anything you want with me, but don't send me to Africa. And that's exactly the opposite for you. You do anything you want with me, but just don't send me to America.